Good morning, and welcome to another edition of United Way for Southeastern Michigan's What's the Word Wednesday. My name is Courtney Howe, and today we will be joined by Shelby Nardone, Prevention Education Specialist and Survivor Speakers Bureau Coordinator for Haven, who will be talking about resources available to survivors of sexual assault and intimate partner violence. Just a reminder that the last 10 minutes of today's conversation are reserved for questions, so please leave your questions in the Q&A box if you're watching on Zoom or in the comment box on Facebook. Now, I would like to welcome United Way's President and CEO, Dr. Darian Hudson, to say a few words. Dr. Hudson?
Thank you, Courtney, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for What's the Word Wednesday. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is sexual assault. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and this is such an important topic for all of us to discuss. We know that 1 out of every 6 American women has been the victim of an attempted or completed rape in her lifetime, and every 73 seconds, another person in our country is sexually assaulted. It is important for people of every gender, regardless of how you identify, to be aware of these facts and what we can do to both protect ourselves and to help support those who are survivors. Today, Shelby Nardone, our Prevention Education Specialist and Survivor Speakers Bureau Coordinator for Haven, is going to share with us resources for survivors and things we all should know about bodily consent. Shelby works with youth, survivors, and community partners to achieve Haven's mission of eradicating intimate partner violence and sexual assault. She facilitates Spark, a young women's empowerment program that discusses the importance of building self-esteem, healthy relationship skills, and creating a culture that seeks to empower and support women. She also coordinates the Survivor Speakers Bureau, a platform to empower survivors of sexual assault and intimate partner violence. Before working in prevention education, Shelby served on Haven's crisis and support line, where she connected with survivors directly to provide support, resources, and options for safety. Shelby brings authenticity, empathy, and compassion to all the work that she does. She is determined to work with survivors and their allies in the community to eradicate intimate partner violence and sexual assault. Please join me in welcoming Shelby to speak with us today, and we are so thankful that you have taken time to join us. Shelby, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hudson, and I want to thank all the folks from United Way for highlighting Sexual Assault Awareness Month and for inviting me here today. I am Shelby Nardone. I'm a prevention education specialist with Haven, and I'm here to talk a little bit about Sexual Assault Awareness Month, how we can support survivors in our communities, and how we can seek services for ourselves and for our loved ones. So April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in our communities. Dr. Hudson gave a statistic that 1 in 6 women will experience a completed or attempted rape in her lifetime. I also want to add that we know that 1 in 33 men will experience an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. And what I also know about those statistics is those are statistics based in reporting. And the majority of survivors of sexual violence don't report what happened to them to law enforcement. So what that tells me is that the rates of sexual violence that are actually happening in our community are much, much higher. And so it's important that we come here today to have a conversation to create a culture that is rooted in ethical and affirmative consent, that we hold perpetrators of sexual violence accountable, and that we support the survivors in our lives. And Sexual Assault Awareness Month was created to create awareness about this cultural and endemic issues in our communities, right? Something that we do at Haven, which I'll talk about in a moment, is how do we begin to create a culture that is rooted in ethical and affirmative consent? How do we shift a culture that allows for sexual violence to occur in the first place to a culture that no longer tolerates this violence? We have a lot of different things that Haven is doing for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, different events that I want to invite the listeners on this call to. All of these events are free of charge. We have the one that I really want to let folks know is that we will be meeting in person. COVID safety guidelines will be put in place, but we will be meeting at Geary Park in Ferndale, April 25th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., where we'll be having a lot of different other services in the community like Mothering Justice, other sexual assault agencies within the Southeast Michigan area, including Wayne County Safe, to come and partner with us. To share resources in the community. We'll have carnival games. It'll be a fun, family-friendly event. We will have speakers, a rally, and then we'll go march throughout downtown Ferndale for consent. So we want to invite folks to participate. For more information about the March for Consent and any other of the virtual programs and events that Haven will be running for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, please feel free to visit our website at www.haven-oakland.org. So a huge piece of what we talk about is how do we begin to support survivors in our lives, right? Given the statistics that Dr. Hudson and myself gave earlier on, I guarantee that there are probably survivors who are tuning into this conversation now. And I want to let you know that I hear you, I see you, and we believe you. We want to start by believing, right? We don't lose anything by not starting by believing, but we lose a whole lot when we don't. So at Haven, we believe survivors, we hear you, and we're here to offer support in a number of different ways that I want to talk to you about. So what is Haven? Haven is Oakland County's Center for the Treatment and Prevention of Intimate Partner Violence and Sexual Assault. You can see our big, beautiful building right here. It is brand new. We are located in the Pontiac area, just south of the Oakland County District Courthouse, right off of Telegraph. So we're easy to find. We're in a central location within Oakland County, and all of our services are housed in this wonderful building. And I also want to let folks know that even though we are located in Oakland County, that we will help survivors of sexual violence and intimate partner violence from outside of Oakland County, from even outside of the state of Michigan, and sometimes, yes, even outside of the country. So the first and really critical service that I want to talk to folks about is that 24/7 crisis and support line. The number is listed at the bottom of the screen, and you can call that number anytime, day or night, to talk to somebody in a confidential way. A lot of the times, I think people hear the word crisis line and they get a little nervous, right? They think, oh, well, what really is a crisis? But it's also that support line. So if you think that there's something going on in your relationship and there's something wrong and you're really just not sure what, and you want to talk to somebody about it who gets it, you can call our crisis line. Maybe something is being brought up from the past that you need to process. You can call our 24/7 crisis and support line. If you're looking for resources or you want to access or talk about any of the other services that I'm going to list here in just a moment, you can call that 24/7 crisis and support line anytime, day or night, and someone will be on the other end to help you. You can also access the same folks on the crisis line via a chat system on our website, which is listed at the bottom of the slide here for you at www.haven-oakland.org. That chat line is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And it is staffed by the same folks that you would be talking to if you called. And that chat really, we have that, for folks who maybe aren't safe calling, right? Maybe they have an abusive partner or spouse who is monitoring who they're talking to. And this chat system is a great way to reach out to us in a different way that may be safer for you. We find that a lot of youth survivors will use this chat. A lot of the times we don't think about youth as being survivors of intimate partner violence or sexual assault, but the unfortunate reality is that they are. So that is available. It's the gateway to all of our services, right? So if folks want to ask questions or look for counseling resources or shelter or speak to an advocate, all they would have to do is call. That crisis line is also available to support people. So maybe you have a friend, a family, a loved one in your life who has experienced something like this, and you're really not sure what to say or how to support them, or maybe you need some support for yourself. Our services are open and available to you as well. I want to talk about our shelter, our residential shelter for a minute, because I think when people hear about Haven, they think of, oh, it's that women's shelter, but that's not necessarily true, right? We are supportive of survivors of all genders, regardless of how you identify or who you are. So our shelter is available for any survivor of any background or circumstance who is in immediate danger from their intimate partner. So survivors of intimate partner violence can come to our shelter. They can bring their families with them, which also includes their pets. Haven is lucky enough to have a brand new pet shelter. So you can bring your furry loved one, your fur baby, whoever they are to you, your cat, dog, lizard, iguana, whatever you've got. We're here to welcome you and your entire family. Folks can usually stay with us between 30 and 90 days, depending on what's going on in their situation. And they work with a case manager, a counselor, advocate, to reach the next steps in their lives. We provide all of the basic necessities, including food, sometimes clothing, laundry, detergent, medication, pet food, things like that. So all of that is provided to you at no cost to you. We have youth services for the children and youth who are staying in the shelter. We have lots of different activities that folks put on. We have folks come in and cook great meals for the residents. So there's a lot that's going on. And I'm sure folks are wondering, how is this working during COVID? Have you been able to stay open? And the answer is yes. We have stayed open throughout the entire pandemic, because what I'll also say for survivors of intimate partner violence or domestic violence, as folks sometimes refer it to as, is we've seen an increased risk for lethality, for increased brutality and violence, and incidences of violence happening in households across the state of Michigan due to the quarantine, due to lockdown measures, because now they're at home with that abusive partner 24/7 and there is no respite or break. So our services are more crucial now than ever. So yes, we have been up and running this entire time. We also have counseling services. So our counseling is specifically for survivors of intimate partner violence, sexual assault, anyone who's experienced child sexual abuse, and any witness to intimate partner violence within the home. So if a child is in the home where intimate partner violence is occurring and they're witnessing it, we can provide counseling services to them as well. All of our counseling services are available for folks ages 5 and up. We have all sorts of methods of healing, including individual therapy, art therapy, group therapy, play therapy, and now telehealth therapy, which is great for folks who don't have access to transportation or childcare. They can log in at home on their screen, just as we're doing now, to talk to their therapist in a confidential space. All of these services are conducted by master's level therapists who are experts in these dynamics of abuse and trauma. We also have a lot of different ways and modalities of healing. We host healing workshops, creative workshops. Sometimes we have yoga. All of these things are open to our clients, completely free of charge. We also have victim advocacy. So a team of advocates in our social action team can actually walk survivors of criminal and civil cases related to intimate partner violence and sexual assault through that entire process. From beginning to end, if that's something that survivor chooses. Certainly they don't have to, but it's simply an option for them. Advocates are a really, really wonderful resource, because what we also know is that going through the criminal justice process for survivors can be really difficult. It can be even re-traumatizing. And so it's really helpful to have somebody in your corner, somebody that you can talk to who is a confidential support system, who can let you know what the potential outcomes might be, process some options, and what potential outcomes those options might lead to. They can help survivors file personal protection orders. So that is a protection order that somebody who is experiencing intimate partner violence or sexual assault can come to Haven and have an advocate help them fill out the paperwork. If the judge grants that order and it gets served, the person who is perpetrating that abuse or has assaulted that person can no longer contact the survivor. Their friends and family cannot contact the survivor. So sometimes that can be a helpful tool of safety for some survivors. It's not best for all, and those advocates can process with you other safety options if that's not going to be the best option for you. They can also help survivors file police reports, give statements to police. They can help them understand the legal process. The only thing they cannot do is represent somebody as an attorney or give them legal advice, because they are not attorneys. Those advocates work in partnership with our forensic nurses on START. So that is our Safe Therapeutic Assault Response Team. So we have advocates and nurses who are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And forensic nurses can treat injuries and collect evidence related to a sexual assault 120 hours or 5 days after that assault has occurred for it to be admissible in a court of law. Now, if that survivor is over the age of 13, we do not force that survivor to automatically release their rape kit, which is the evidence collection, to law enforcement. And in fact, by law, we will hold on to that kit for a minimum of a year. And in all the time that Haven has been running this program, we have not gotten rid of a single kit. So we will hold on to those kits indefinitely. So if years down the road, a survivor says, okay, I think I'm ready to go through that process, all of the evidence is there. Those forensic nurses are trauma informed, right? A lot of the times people don't really know what to do if they've experienced a sexual assault, and they'll often go to hospitals, right, who may or may not be able to collect evidence, right? And so sometimes survivors are bouncing between hospitals to Haven, and it can be really stressful. So if anybody needs any more information about our sexual assault program, they can call our crisis line anytime, day or night. And we will see survivors of all ages and do exams on survivors of all ages. And it is completely survivor driven. And that is something that we believe in Haven is in empowerment. So we'll talk about why empowerment is so important when you're supporting somebody who's experienced sexual violence. But that survivor gets to make the decision about whether they want to do the exam or not, regardless of their age, what parts of the exam they want to do and which ones they don't want to do. And if at any time they want to stop the exam, they have every right to do so. So we practice the same consent that we teach out in the community. We also have wraparound case management services for any survivor of intimate partner violence and sexual assault. So survivors of intimate partner violence can face an average of 41 barriers at any given time. And sometimes survivors are coming to us with nothing but the clothes on their back, and they really are starting over, which can seem and is really, really overwhelming, right? When you've had to leave behind everything that you've ever known, your clothes, your personal items, even maybe your home, and have to start your life over. So we have lots of great partnerships with other services and resources in the community, just like United Way. We're really fortunate to have them as a supporter. And so they are able to access different resources they may need to overcome those barriers, whether that be transportation, housing, childcare, healthcare, different things like that. We also host a lot of youth services through the resource room. We have an annual summer camp for all of our clients. We had it last year. We will be having it this year with COVID safety guidelines in place to make sure that it is not only fun, but it is safe. We have our back to school bash where folks can come and get their school supplies for the fall. We have a lot of different services geared towards youth that we run through the resource room. So all of those direct services, I know that is a lot of information. I want to let you know that our services that we offer to survivors in the community are free. So folks are like, how am I going to pay for counseling, or how do I pay for an advocate? Well, you don't have to. You don't even have to have insurance. We also don't require documentation. So I know to get a lot of services at places, people have to have, a photo ID, or they have to have their birth certificate or social security card. We don't need any of that. So we do serve undocumented survivors, and we keep all of that information completely confidential. So if that is a concern for folks, we don't need documentation, and nor do we report people who are undocumented. So all you would have to do is give us that call. We have a really powerful federal law that protects us and protects survivors who come to us. So even if, law enforcement were to ask for somebody, ICE were to ask for somebody, unless they had a signed warrant by a judge, we don't have to tell them anything. So I know that for some folks, that is a huge concern, right? Like if I go and get help at this place, are they gonna, tell somebody? We can't and we won't. So we are completely confidential in that way. And if you have any questions about your particular situation, process, what could this service look like for me or for my loved one? Again, all you would have to do is call that confidential crisis line at 248-334-1274 to speak with a crisis advocate in that moment. The last one on here that I want to talk a little bit about is that prevention education piece, which is something that I have the pleasure of being able to do. So my role as a prevention educator and the folks on my team, our job is to go out into community to have conversations, to raise awareness, to create a sustainable culture that challenges a culture that supports violence. And how do we create a society, right, that no longer supports violence? Like my role and my goal is to be able to put myself out of a job because I don't need it anymore. So we have conversations with folks of all ages about ethical and affirmative consent. So I'm going to define how we talk about ethical and affirmative consent. So consent must be enthusiastically engaging, actively participatory, sober, verbal and nonverbal, and only yes means yes. Once we have this as our understanding of consent, leaves very little room for sexual assault to occur. And it also removes the veil of excuses that perpetrators of sexual violence commonly hide behind. So we teach folks, how do we begin to practice consent in all of our relationships, not just our intimate ones, and all of our daily interactions. And we break that down for folks. Because when we have difficult conversations, right, it doesn't get easier when the stakes are high. And if we have and practice these things in all of our interactions, it makes it much easier to translate those skills into our intimate relationships and to respond and recognize when we see somebody who may be violating somebody's consent, pushing on their boundaries, practicing coercion, which is something that I believe that all of us are capable of, especially if we're raised in the United States. I remember I had a colleague tell me that like we're all capable of coercion. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not capable of coercion. And then I thought back to all of the times, when I would say, hey, do you want to come out to this party with me tonight? I really need you there. I'm going to be the only person. You need to be a good friend and support me. And I'm like, wow, even in those moments and in those relationships, I was practicing coercion. Sure. I wasn't willing to take no for an answer. I wasn't giving people options or choices. Mm-hmm. And so now I stop and try to recognize those moments where I have an opportunity to practice ethical and affirmative consent. And so that way I'm practicing what I preach. We also, teach. Oh,
yeah, I was just going to comment, prevention education is so vital, right? And then we talk about coercion, and I know we do have some questions that are in the chat. And I do want to get there. First question, we talked about ways to support, right? What are the best ways that people can support their friends and loved ones who experience assault or intimate partner violence? How can we be supportive of them?
That's a great question, Courtney. And we tell folks, there are 3 big things that you can say to somebody that are going to be really helpful. And that first piece, like I talked about earlier, is I believe you. Because most survivors of sexual violence, their biggest fear and the reason they don't come forward is that they feel like they're not going to be believed. So simply starting with believing, I believe you, I believe that you were hurt, can radically transform that person's journey to healing. The second one is it's not your fault. Every survivor of sexual assault that I've ever worked with has blamed themselves for sexual assault. And to remind them gently, I don't think what happened to you was your fault. Can also help that person come out of that state of shame and blame. And then asking something really helpful, like, how can I support you? and empowering them with an open-ended question, right? So they can take control back of their life and they can decide what help looks like for them.
That's extremely helpful. We really appreciate that. So we have one more question and then we will wrap up for today. We do know that Sexual Assault Awareness Month highlights the need for recognizing and combating digital assault. Can you talk a little bit about what that means, digital assault?
That's a really great question. So we are all living in this digital space, right? And interacting in completely different ways. And consent, like I said, is a part of all of our interactions, including digital interactions. And so when we talk about digital assault, we're talking about things like sending unwanted photos and videos of a sexually explicit nature, or harassing somebody using comments or text messages. We're also talking about things like doxing, trying to facilitate in-person violence by posting somebody's private information about their name, their job, their home. And so how we combat that, right, is we translate those skills into a digital space. That is something that we have been working with youth a lot in the schools to talk about how we can practice consent, even through text message, DMs, and online. And how do we challenge victim blaming? Because it is so pervasive on social media. How do we challenge it when we see it?
That's extremely insightful. I know, with this generation and even in our time space, understanding what those boundaries are digitally is very important. I think we do have time for one more question, so I'm going to slide this in. People often still think these issues is affecting only cisgender women. Can you talk about some other populations that are also affected by assault and violence?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. We know that folks in marginalized communities are at the highest risks of experiencing sexual violence. That we think that only certain kinds of people, like cisgendered women, can experience sexual violence, but that is not true. Unfortunately, folks in the LGBTQ+ community also experience sexual violence at a disproportionate rate. Specifically, bisexual and trans women are at the highest risks in that community of experiencing sexual violence, because what sexual violence is really rooted in is a tool of oppression and power and control.
Well, Shelby, again, we so thank you for sharing this information with us. At this time, that is all for the questions that we have today. Shelby, again, thank you for that. And I am going to turn it over to Dr. Hudson to say a few closing words. Thank you again, Shelby.
Thank you.
Shelby, we appreciate this information today. And you mentioned, I want to make sure that everyone remembers that you are having a March for Consent on April 25th. Do I have the date correct?
Correct.
Okay, and where is that going to be?
At Geary Park in Ferndale, Michigan. For more information about our events, including the March for Consent, you can check that out on our website.
Okay, and I know they've put it in the chat for everyone who's paying attention today. I also just wanted to lift that April 28th this year is Denim Day. And so for people who don't know what that is, that's a day where we all stand with survivors of sexual assault around the world. And so wear your jeans that day. There is a story behind Denim Day. I know we don't have enough time to go into that, but there are so many different ways that you can support survivors. It doesn't just have to be this month, but there are two events that are happening locally that we spoke about. And as Shelby mentioned, there are a host of different resources that are available to anyone who is trying to support someone who is a survivor of sexual assault or someone who is currently experiencing that. And so we encourage you to take advantage of those resources. And again, I just appreciate you, Shelby, very much. As a reminder, for any other type of assistance that you might need during this time, we are still operating our 2-on-1 call center. Help is available to you 24/7. You can either call the number 2-on-1, or you can go to our website at unitedwaysem.org/211, and you can reach out. All you need is a zip code, and this will provide resources, everything you can think of, whether it's rental assistance, if you need diapers, if you need food, if you need a ride to work or to the doctor's office or to get a vaccination. This is the number that you call. You can also schedule your vaccine by going to michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. We can't stress enough. You are going to hear it every single time that we come together. Please continue to wear that mask. Please continue to get tested if you have symptoms, and please get those vaccinations. Also wanted to lift our 21-day equity challenge. And I think it goes without saying that it's just more important than ever, from the information that we heard from Shelby today and the Haven family, to what's been happening around us. And we send strength and courage to all of our neighbors in Minneapolis right now. Our former board member, Tanya Allen, is now there as the president and CEO of the McKnight Foundation. We send strength to her. And of course, we are keeping the families of George Floyd and Dante Wright in our prayers, and just ask that everyone please continue to lean in and learn and unlearn about racism. We are launching our first ever 21-day equity challenge, and this is going to occur May 21st through June 18th. Participants are going to receive emails every day during the week that are filled with videos, articles, and infographics to help broaden our collective understanding of the history as well as current issues surrounding racial inequities and what we all can do to help move our community forward. Additionally, there will be opportunities to engage with fellow participants and share what we've learned in virtual events and facilitated roundtables throughout the month. So if you're interested in participating, or if you would like to host a roundtable, please sign up at unitedwayscm.org/equity challenge. It is also not a mistake that we are ending the day before Juneteenth. So stay tuned. There are a number of events that we'll be hosting throughout the month of June. We will also be commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa riots on June 21st. So there will be a number of events that are happening around that in partnership with our colleagues around the region. Also wanted to lift tax assistance. So today's the 14th. Normally, this is the day before taxes are due, but the deadline is extended to May 17th. That does not mean that we wait. So we encourage all of you, please, please do not wait until the last minute to file. If you need help filing your taxes, there are several free opportunities available to individuals in our region. If your household income last year was below $57,000, you qualify for free virtual assistance from a tax preparation volunteer. Appointments are available now from the Accounting Aid Society and Wayne Metropolitan Community Action Agency, known as Wayne Metro, and can be made online at claimyourrefund.com. Additionally, United Way's My Free Taxes is a free tax filing tool. It's available to anyone, regardless of your income. And that's a good place to start if you're not sure about all of the different things that you're going to need to get your taxes done. So a lot of reminders today, but it's just very important to us that you don't wait for those taxes. So April is also Arab American Heritage Month. And next week, we're thrilled to welcome Rana Abbas Taylor, the communications director with Access, who is going to talk to us about equity in the Arab American community and the work that Access is doing in that space. To see our previous town halls and more upcoming topics, please visit unitedwayscm.org/virtual town halls. And the website is also included in the chat box for your review. So we know there's a lot of information today, but we hope it was helpful to you. I certainly learned a lot. And again, Shelby, very humbled that you joined us today. And just hope that everyone remembers, please, please, to stay safe, stay socially distanced, wear those masks, and just love each other. There's a lot going on around us right now. So just lean in and love each other. And with that, we end our What's the Word Wednesday. Thank you.